welcome to the Mouse and Keyboard Podcast. My name is Gabe and his name is Cooper, and we have two guests on today talking about theater. This is the part 2 of the episode because we got cut a little bit short last time, so we just wanted to let them finish what they were saying. Let's start off where we ended last time with Savannah.
So last episode, I was basically just talking about how theater can really help form your character, and because there'll be several situations where, say, you and a friend audition for a show, and maybe she gets a part. I mean, if not, maybe even the lead, and you may not get a part at all, and just really, accepting that sometimes you and your friend have different skills, and that you need to be just happy for them and not jealous, and how theater can help make you a more empathetic person and really help kind of give you a growth mindset, because theater getting into a show takes a lot of hard work and dedication and a lot of, you know what I mean, just a lot of hard work and patience.
Liv, what would you say about that? How, kind of in what Savannah said, what are your opinions on that?
I would think, yes, it definitely builds character. And I think it gives you something to work towards. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
You usually have a good amount of time before your show to when it's happening and you know what part you want. And so you have a lot of preparation time. And I know personally, speaking from experience, if you put work into it, because if 2 months out, even longer, if you put work into it, it's gonna pay off in an audition and it's gonna show. So it gives you something to strive for.
That reminds me of the saying, practice makes perfect. Do you think that would apply to theater?
Oh yes, absolutely. I don't even think I've ever had an audition that I really rehearsed for that didn't actually turn out well, now that I really think about it. Because I don't know about you, Liv, but I happen to really struggle with controlling my nerves, and just practicing breathing and just kind of regaining and finding control in those anxiety-inducing situations has just really helped me. Do you have any experience with that, and how practicing would really, help you in the audition room, or really anywhere outside of theater? I mean, inside of the theater bubble?
Well, what I would say is that when auditioning for musical theater, you usually have to do a singing audition and an acting audition and sometimes even dance. But I would say the acting audition, that part I don't really prepare for. I just make sure to just get into character all the way. But the thing I prepare for the most is the singing, because and especially in musical theater, that's what really makes your part. So
oh yes, absolutely.
I practice tons before, and I'll be singing it everywhere I go, my 20-second piece or whatever, just to make sure I got it down, because the thing I struggle with is getting up there and just maybe forgetting the words or the tune or something. Not so much once I start, it just kind of comes. I don't know if that's you, but it's
just absolutely
starting, and it's what do I do? And then
so how much time would you say you take to practice before an audition, the night before, say?
Oh, the night before? I mean, the night before is nuts for me, because I mean, it depends on my what audition it's for. Say I was auditioning for a theater that I've done a lot of shows at, I actually still do get nervous to this day, and I've done 9 shows at Art and Soul Performing Arts, and even still, I still feel nerves and a little bit of anxiety. So sometimes I'll practice from 30 minutes to an hour, and sometimes I'll go completely overboard to 2 hours maybe. What about you, Liv?
Well, I would say in total I spend I don't even know how many hours, because I usually pick out a song. It's almost as soon as I know what the next show is, I start thinking of songs, and then I usually go to a voice coach, and I go probably for I would say maybe like 4 or 5 weeks after school, once a week for like an hour and a half. But then besides that, like I sing with my parents, and I sing to almost any audience I can get within like normal boundaries. But like the night before, I can barely sleep because I'm that type of person who, like, if there's something big coming up, it's hard to let that go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not the only one.
So I'll practice a ton, but like I'm also kind of busy, so I would say as much time as I can get in from after school to bedtime. Besides, that also includes homework and other sports. And then the day of, I'm usually singing at school because that's how nervous I am.
Me too. I mean, I am muting my button on Zooms and just trying to keep my lips shut as much as possible, but I'm still singing. I mean, I'm not even kidding.
Out of curiosity, what shows have you guys done?
Savannah, you can go.
So of course, I haven't been in very many shows recently. My last shows include being Tessie in Annie at Spotlight Youth Theater and Queen Aduna in Frozen at Grease Paint Youth Theater. And my most recent art and show was Frozen, and I was middle Anna in that.
For me, Art and Souls, like those are really the only like actual plays. I mean, I've done like weird spin-offs of things before, like other theaters, but for main shows, I've done I think 5 with Art and Soul. I did Annie, and I was just like an ensemble. I did Willy Wonka, and I was Veruca Salt, like the bratty girl, for those of you who don't know what that is. And then I did The Little Mermaid, and I was one of Ariel's sisters. I did, what was after that? Oh, I did Frozen. And then and Aladdin's kind of happening right now, but I mean, it's kind of on a big pause.
Yeah, TBD.
So,
yeah.
So what is your opinion on like the theater program and say, schools? How does that affect, like, does it bring people into the theater, I guess, business, or does it does the bad experiences from it, because I know I've had some, does it draw them away, do you think?
What do you think, Liv?
Well, I would say that's a really good question, because obviously everyone's gonna have a different experience at a school show. I would say it depends on your school, because I know like our school, we have some strange plays. I mean, they're not normal. They're like super weird and out of the box. So I would say I could see how someone who's just done a school play not like acting, but I don't think that's the same as like. But like, I mean, okay, sorry, that's a hard question.
Yeah, sorry. I definitely agree, because I mean, some schools it's like apples and oranges. I'm familiar with schools that have their students write a whole nother script, maybe inspired by a show, like maybe instead of The Wizard of Oz, maybe rewriting it so it's Lost in Oz, where there's Ambrosia Red Brick Road, and say Ton Juan and Wonton instead of Toto the dog.
Yeah, that's what we did last year.
And Two Kittens. And I know that there are some high schools, and particularly Xavier, who put on outstanding shows. They did Little Women right before quarantine, and I actually came to see it, and it was absolutely outstanding. I mean, you can see how much care and time and effort these students put into their show, and how much, they've grown and learned just being together and, really working hard. And of course, like Liv said, because it is a school show, you may not grow up and do the whole Broadway, New York, Hollywood thing, but it depends on where you are, but it's definitely an experience I highly implore you to try out.
Can I add on to that, Savannah?
Yes, of course.
So I would say being in a school show, it's definitely not the same. Because I would say most schools, they're not going to cut people and like So they'll just add ensemble parts, and like everyone's gonna be in it, and you're most likely gonna have a good time if you have an open mindset of knowing that maybe this isn't your thing, but like it could be. I also think there are people who don't like being on stage. They don't like performing, and they don't like public speaking. So I would say if you're one of those people, give theater a chance because it might help you with that, and that's a really important skill.
That's actually one of the reasons we started this podcast, is to get better at public speaking, because it's not so much public speaking, but it's a way to connect with the public.
Yeah.
Awesome. I actually have an answer to Gabe's question. Yes, school plays have definitely affected my attitude towards being in theater, because I used to attend another school, and we did some funky plays there.
And so do you recommend going into the quote-unquote theater business as a child to some of our younger listeners out there?
Honestly, I'd say the earlier the better. I think like right when you're vulnerable and, willing to take a quote unquote hit and kind of willing to experience failure, because I kind of find that with younger theater students, they have a little bit more of an open growth mindset, maybe a little bit less patience, which is also key in the theater world. But I think just bottom line, the earlier the better. What do you think, Liv?
I would 100% agree with that. I would say the earlier you can start, the more it will grow on you. So, I mean, if you're in high school or like middle school even, and you're starting in a play and you're very shy, I mean, you're just not going to grow as much as someone who's like maybe in elementary school or like in kindergarten or something, because those people are going to have like more opportunities to be on stage. So it's just going to help. They're just going to grow more because they're going to be in the business longer. But at the same time, it's not for everyone. So, and I totally understand if you don't like theater.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So what do you think in like an acceptable age to start out would be?
Well, I wouldn't say too young. And I mean, like you said, Liv, I mean, you like it and this is something that you love. You definitely enjoy doing it, but you may not want to do the whole Broadway shtick, or you really don't. So I think just as soon as they seem to have interest in it, whether that means they've been singing let it go around the house, or it means that they've loved their dance classes and singing lessons. So I mean, just whenever you really feel like, if there are any parents listening, just as soon as they feel like, they're enjoying, those sort of theater aspects. I mean, I don't see anything wrong in giving it a try.
I would say, I don't think there's like a specific age, more as like a mindset or an attitude, where I would say I wouldn't start theater until you're patient enough to like wait through the process of being cast in, and like knowing that you're not always going to be in the scene. So I would say once you're old enough to understand that. So like for some kids that could be really young because they mature, and for other kids it could be older because they just need to wait until they can handle that.
Yeah. I don't personally know if you put a 2-year-old into a theater thing, I don't think they'd have much patience during casting, say.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said last episode, I mean, theater is a very labor-intensive sort of extracurricular to get into, or profession. I mean, you could be at the theater for 5 to 6 hours, maybe 3 to 4. It just really depends on your role. And if you're a 4-year-old, like performing in a show, you're most likely going to be pretty important. So, I mean, just I'd say as soon as they can handle those long nights and, intensive work days and all that stuff. But I do know kids who have started really young, but they are not exactly enjoying the experience because now it's become so much pressure because they went straight from the little summer camp they did up until, say, ASU Gamage. And I think there definitely is such thing as too young, but I definitely don't think, but I think if they really truly do have an interest and the parents do are sort of capable to kind of warm them up into that area where they are super successful.
Well,
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
that's a great end to the podcast. Thank you.